Estate Agency X, the UK's #1 estate agency podcast discussing the future of estate agency, entrepreneurship and business with hosts Mark Burgess and Rob Brady. So on this episode of Estate Agency X, I'm with Dan Cohen from You, Me and Property. If anyone is in the Midlands area and knows of Dan, he's got a great story about to unfold, rising from his days in the early days of being an estate agent to going into a 9 to a 12 branch agency that ended up being a 19 branch agency, and going from a negotiator or property consultant to sales director and owning that business, to exiting it only a few years later, to now setting up his own business, and what it's been like in the last year. So I really hope you enjoy this episode. So Dan, welcome to the show.
Hi Rob, thanks for having me.
For anyone watching or listening out there, we've got Dan Cohen on from You, Me, Property. So Dan, give us a bit of background on who Dan is and what arrives in today being Dan Cohen.
Do you know what it is? Starting on that You, Me, Property. It's a mouthful, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's part and parcel.
I want to make sure I got me, you, or you, me.
People get You and Me Property, you and Property. So you, Me and Property, which we'll get into how that sort of derived. But yeah, thanks for having me here. It's great to be here. I think things like this a little bit out of my comfort zone, but always good to push myself out my comfort zone. Yeah. And I am currently, on my own, running a business in the estate agency world, in the estate agency landscape, having been on a journey from the bottom to the top and then starting all over again. But it seems like the starting all over again is the best bit I've ever did. It's creating so many opportunities for me. And I'm actually enjoying being an estate agent, even though I hate the term estate agent, which might sound a bit strange, but I do. I hate the term estate agent.
I get that. I mean, when I was an agent, you go to some dinners or events or friends and family, and someone else asks what you do, and you're like, I used to say I work in property because I didn't want to say I'm an estate agent, because people just assume,
100%.
No, you're just one of those people, you're going to sell to me or whatever that might be.
Well, I tend to try and always start it with, I'm not a politician, and I think that people tend to warm to you then, because that's worse. So yeah, I think, we're one up from politicians, but it's one of those things you don't say, I'm an estate agent. Like you say, I'm in property, or I sell property, or I help people move. Now I feel like I build relationships with people that happen to have homes and want to get on with a different part of their lives. I don't quite know how you say that to someone. They ask, what do you do? But that's what it feels like.
So for people out there, obviously we've known each other for a couple of years now, and we actually sort of met within a project outside of it, and our paths collided, and I've seen Dan in corporate or larger agency Dan, and Dan being independent free Dan, especially if anyone you haven't follow Dan on social media as well, on his Instagram, because he's quite open and honest about the life of being in that new startup phase. So cast your mind back into how you got into agency. Usually a lot of people I ask that first question is like, what was actually the first, how did you get into agency?
Yeah, but I know the answer that you probably get from everyone, because I think everyone says I fell into it. It seems to be changing now, where people are actually growing up saying, I want to be an estate agent, because they see the lights and the glam and the big fancy cars. And all the TV stuff, and they go, I want to be an estate agent. And I suppose there is that shift now, but the majority of people would answer the question, say I fell into it. Definitely fell into it. To be honest with you, I was 20, 22, 23, wasn't really looking for a job. I was sofa surfing, and I think my mum, who I was living with at the time, and my stepdad just wanted me to have something to do. They'd been looking for properties, they knew someone at an agency. And actually, my stepdad filled out all of the forms for me to get me an interview. So, I didn't really want the job, but I go and interview with this lady. And my first job was at Steve Gooch Estate Agents in Newark, which is in Gloucestershire. At the time, was a 4-branch network. And when you talk about sort of sliding door moments, it was just a piece of luck. That number one, the interview. to be fair, I thought it went terribly, that they offered me a job there and then. I think that they maybe saw something in me that at that time I didn't see in myself. And those foundations that I got there over the next 3 years probably played a massive part in who I am today. How I operate in the industry maybe makes me a little bit different to other people too. So, the fundamentals of starting out that job were I swept the front of the office every single day. So the pavement out the front, Steve was a big believer in that would gain you, one instruction a month, just by chatting to someone out on the front, cleaning the windows and the window ledges down every morning, hoovering up inside, and just making sure that the office looked tip top before everyone else arrived. So that would be an 8:30 till 7, 6 days a week as well, which, from someone that was a little bit shy of hard work, jumping in at 8:30 till 7 every day was a shift. But I ended up wanting to be the first person through the door and the last person to leave. And it was probably a lot down to Nikki, who was my manager, and Steve's sister-in-law. It was a very close-knit company. But it was what the sort of instilling you to have that pride in being at work, almost wanting to do her proud as well. She was a real mother-like figure at that time, and bringing me on my way. And she was harsh. I think that there were times where, whether you'd get away with it now, I suppose it's only 10 years ago, but where she'd really sort of say, "Shut up, you idiot," inappropriate. No one cares about your opinion. And I suppose most people at that point would probably leave. I needed it. And then, she wouldn't let me do anything that you want to do. And you sort of think, well, what's the point of these jobs? And it's only 10 years later you look back and go, I get it. I understand the point of those jobs. She'd send me out with raffle tickets. So I wasn't selling houses in the estate agency, I was selling raffle tickets. She'd send me out for raffle tickets, at Easters and Christmases and whatever, up and down the high street, to meet everyone and sell these raffle tickets, and don't come back till you sold them all. And literally I wouldn't come back till I sold them all, because I wouldn't want to disappoint her. But the larger lesson is everybody in that community knew who I was. Everybody in that community knew I worked at Steve Gooch. Everybody in that community knew that, I was a nice, smiley face that they could always speak to up and down. And it was just building that, what is now a wider community with the power of social media and things like that. But then everybody in that small little town knew that I worked at Steve Gooch. And if they wanted to sell their house, they could have a chat with me whilst I was buying my coffee at lunchtime or whatever it might be, or whilst I was in the queue at Co-op. And those small little details, I think when I eventually left, and I never actually wanted to leave, if I'm honest, I would have stayed there forever and a day. I'd still be there now. And I still keep in contact with them, not as much as I should. But my wife lived in Birmingham. She was finishing uni and going there, and obviously she wasn't my wife at the time. But we decided that we didn't want to do the long distance thing. So about 2-3 years after this whole progression through Steve Gooch, I started to look to move. And if I keep going, let me know. But I think that the big key part of Steve Gooch, which actually I think that they were ahead of their time, because everybody in their offices had to do every aspect of estate agency. So when I was learning how to do the job role, I was learning how to conduct myself, on the telephone. I was learning how to create the best experience during a viewing. I was then understanding how you valued a property, and then how you pitched to a prospective client to win that business. Their fee structure was 2% at the time. Certainly in the markets in which I work in, 2% certainly hasn't been available for a long time. So it was a real, learning of how you get 2%, how you demonstrate value, then how you back it up with all the bits and bobs that you do. And then from what I saw when I left and I saw other agencies, everyone did viewing negotiator, valuer, lister, measure upper, you name it, different title for everything. So when I did move on from that stint that I did there, because I relocated to Birmingham, moved in with Jordan and started our life there, I of course wanted to join a business that I thought was successful. So I saw all of the Paul Carr boards. And honestly, take me back if you need to. But I
was about to say, no, it's a really good insight because most people I sit on the sofa here, and most people I speak to, when they say that, I fell into a estate agency, when I ask them about how was their first onboarding experience, was either like I joined Connell's, a big group, and my actual first day was I went out with the sales manager at the time, and he said, I'm going to show you real estate agency. And we went to a new build home that had been on the market, bearing in mind it was in the middle of the recession, a new build property, and the goal was to break down all the other estate agency boards and put our board back up in a prominent position on a property that had been empty for 6 months. So that was my first job and role, and then my second role was here's the hot box on your desk, and just take the old cards out from the person that we'd last got rid of, and just start to randomly call people, and none of that box was valid. So it's great to hear that, because even from the cleaning the front door and the windows down, but not you just got to clean it down because I'm your boss, you've got to tell me to do it. There's a why behind it. Like when you're doing that, you might stop and chat to someone, and that's because we get one valuation a month from that, because we're having those conversations. When you go and sell those raffle tickets, it's because we're trying to build up you to be a presence of people getting to know your face, not I just want you to go and do something because I'm in a hierarchy position and you're going to do what I tell you to do. So you can see there's a lot of what you do now, and the light I see of Dan Cohen now, you can see a lot of that, and I can understand a lot more about you and why you do what you do and the processes based on that there. So
massive part.
and when you were in that, you said you were there for a couple of years. How long did it take you to get into valuing?
Do you know what? It's real tough to identify real timelines with it, but it was a long time. It was a long time, and we would. I think if I would say it was 6 months before I was carrying out appointments on my own, and those appointments maybe would have been viewings.
Wow, yeah, that's a long time. It
is a long time, and as I said, I'll step on that bit later on as well about just how I feel about how it should be, because the importance of it, I think it was so crucial. When I did get let out to do a valuation, after numerous appointments with it would have been with Nikki, it would have been with Luke, it would have been with Wayne, different guys. And when I was finally let out, I went and done this valuation, and I remember it in my head. And I suppose that's one of the things that I think is one of my strengths. Things stick with me, especially if I've got something wrong and someone brings it to my attention. It's not a fob it off and go, well, you're wrong. It really does bother me. So I went to the valuation. It was a little cottage down a little lane, and I met a guy there, and I valued his property, and he gave me the instruction. I'm obviously absolutely buzzing. So I go back into the office, and I tell her, Nikki, great news. I've gained the instruction. I've got this new listing. This guy, and I've got 2% too. Look, blah blah blah. I'm so excited. And the first thing she asked me is okay, how did you arrive at a figure? How did you come up with that valuation? I says, I just knew it. I knew it, and I always felt like I had a knack for it. Okay, what evidence did you produce? What research did you do? I said, no, I didn't. I didn't need to. I just knew that it would be that worth. She stopped me. She made me call the guy back up, rearranged to go back out with her. I then had to obviously prep for it, show her my evidence as to why I was valuing it, where I was valuing it, and go back out and do the appointment. And she wasn't bothered if we lost it again, because we looked silly going back out to do a valuation of something I'd already won. It was about doing the job properly. And those things stick, because as I've gone throughout my career, and you will have done it, where you turn up at properties and agents haven't got any evidence.
Well, I mean, I've got a friend, like obviously being out of the industry, I've got friends who message me and say, right, this is the situation. And even actually, we've just listed Kel's flat actually on the market with a local agent. And I've been asking those exactly same questions. How did you arrive at that figure? Because my figure's different to their figure. And even my friends, when they say to me, like one of my friends had a valuation done, and she said, what's your gut feeling? And I was like, I reckon about 500,000. And she was like, no, you're way off. I was like, no, I've looked at the evidence. I can see it. I can value it still today. And I said to her, what's the other agent said? She's like, 550 to 645. And I was like, it's $100,000 almost difference in valuation. I was like, what's the comps? And she was like, none of them. Just said like, this is our opinion and this is what our feelings, and this is what I said. It's just, you're right, exactly right in what you're saying. And even yesterday I was watching Sunset Selling or something like that. It's like, what do you call it, your guilty pleasure.
Yeah, selling sunsets, right?
Yeah,
we know
selling
you know the
sunsets. And there's a guy, like, even on that one, like, they're on camera, and the guy was like, yeah, I reckon it's worth, like, I don't know, whatever it was, like, you can get 26 million for this house. And the guy was like, I was hoping for a bit more. And he was like, what do you reckon? And he was like, I was hoping 28 because I got an emotional type. He was like, okay, we'll just try it at 28. And I was like, who's the expert in this?
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah, but that's where a good solid foundation, which obviously I've come a long way from starting up at Steve Gooch, and though I probably never, I try and stay so humble that I still think I'd go back there and probably just slip into a normal role, and really enjoy it. But I think that's where a level of confidence in your foundations to really understand your beliefs. And look, I've just had the exact instance where I've walked away from an instruction because I don't believe in the price, and they also didn't believe in my value. I wanted to quibble on fees and costs and things like that. So if you don't believe in your worth and your value, for me, like an agent going, well, okay, let's just give that a go. Why are you there?
Yeah.
What are you there for?
Yeah.
But again, these are small little lessons, which at the point perhaps meant nothing to me. But if you can just get one of them great leaders in your life early on,
massive.
It makes a huge difference. Because I remember going to a bungalow, which was one of the first sales I achieved. I'd done the valuation with Nikki, and the lady in front of me had asked me the fee, and I'd stone-faced said it's 2%. And they said, great, okay, no worries, and we moved forward. And afterwards, Nick brought it up with me. She said, great delivery of the fee. It wasn't, we're normally 2%, but I could do 1.5.
Yeah.
Or we're 2%, but because, it's today, it's 1%.
Do you know what? It's interesting that, not to bash the agent we put the flat on the market with, but he said his fee, and obviously they've got a minimum fee because it's the lower end of the market. I was like, okay. And he was like, but I can do it for you, mate, for like... 500 quid off. I was like, you don't need to. Like, if you can get what you said you're going to get for it, and we come to those agreement of actually the sale price we reckon we're going to get for it, and you go over the line, I will happily pay you that, because it'd just be something that we don't have to worry about anymore. And he was negotiating with himself. And I was like, this is crazy. I'm not. And especially he used to be my sales manager in one of our offices. So like, I know him well enough, and I was like, oh my God, this is what would have happened out on the valuations at the same time. It's crazy.
It's not about arrogance. Our business isn't about arrogance. Our business is about evidence.
Yeah.
So if you collect the evidence and you walk through a property and you've got the belief that you've checked it all, you've got nothing to negotiate about. And if you understand your value, about what you're bringing to that customer, hence why you're there and why they brought you there in the first place, you of course you don't drop by 500, you don't drop by a penny.
Yeah.
Because you shouldn't want to, need to, but you should have demonstrated your value enough that it isn't even in question. It shouldn't be needed. What I'm trying to achieve at the moment is a demonstration of value before I arrive.
Yeah.
And have uncontested business. And so far, so good on the whole, where it is uncontested. I'm the only agent going because of a sort of a track record of here's the work we've done. This is what we've achieved. How I scale that, it's another question, because a lot of that business comes from people that you meet on viewing appointments, on the telephone, just in general.
Scalability of that is in technology. I know that for a fact. You can scale that. We only had one actually in our lifecycle WhatsApp group the other day of one that one of the agents, and they're a boutique estate agency, 3 people, nothing really big, but he went out and he did 2 other agents, but he was the lowest on price because that's the value of what it was. He said the other agents tried to overvalue it, and he was the highest fee. And the guy said, yep, I'll go ahead with you. And when you look back for the system, he said it's crazy. 2 years of the guy was being nurtured in the system. He'd been reading the articles, reading the stuff, watching his videos, and he was just getting influenced by that agent. So when he walked through the door, he was like, yeah, I know who you are. I'm going to use you. But that can only be done if you know how to bring the value to that content and what you want to say, not just expect that people are going to know the value before you, when they turn up, within that hour, understand that value. So, it can be done, but in repeat business, referrals, word of mouth, gives that financial credibility that, if someone in your tribe knows someone else who's a safety, you're more likely to use them than a stranger, and it comes back to our primary instinct. So, so you arrive in Birmingham. Jordan, you said she's gone to university. Did you say?
So Jordan was at uni in Worcester, and my mum was living in Malvern at the time when I first left Hertfordshire. I lived in a place called Hemel Hempstead in Hertfordshire, and I was sort of, like most, I suppose, early 20s, a bit lost. Didn't really know what job I wanted to do, trying to find my feet career-wise. never quite sure really where I wanted to be. I think at school it was a PE teacher. My stepdad was a PE teacher. I wanted to be a PE teacher, super cool job.
Yeah.
Just having fun all the time, 6 weeks off. Seemed right up my street, but then I didn't want to do university to get there, the education system actually wasn't really for me, just because I didn't really want to do the work. I think if I'm not having fun, I'm not really doing it, and that was the case with that. So, I found myself sort of, looking at things, and I lost a friend around that time, and we spoke about it before in a different guise. I lost a friend at the time through knife crime, and it was a bit of a reality shock. It was a bit of a wake up moment, and I called my mum sort of the next day and said, right, I need to change something. Something's not right here. Can I move up with you? She was living in Malvern at the time, as I say. So moved up there sort of December 2021, something like that. And as I say, sofa surfed then with a few friends that I met at Worcester Uni because she was close to that. So it's like, I'll move up there to start working and behave myself and settle down and knuckle down. And actually, I just found a party scene as quickly as I could. But the blessing from that came, obviously, I met Jordan and she's a great woman. I'm still with her now, obviously married and have a son with her. And she helped get me on the straight and narrow. So that helped a lot. But making that move there, getting that job role at Steve Gooch, these are all just little moments where you look at things, go, God, if that didn't happen, if I didn't meet Jordan, if I didn't quite take that job because my stepdad applied, if I didn't meet Nikki, would I be sitting here today talking how I'm talking now? Probably not. So those moments were super, super key. And then, as I say, Jordan had come to the end of uni. It was, does she stay with me down sort of Malvern, Cheltenham way, or do we both go up towards her mum in Birmingham? And there just seemed to be more opportunity there in Birmingham. And I was excited to make that change. Every time I'd visited Jordan over those years when we'd gone to her mum's or whatever, you see Paul Carr boards everywhere, littered, honestly, everywhere. If I came up, I'd go work for them. And they had those nice gallo boards, so they look good as well, like American. So I'd go and work for them. Yeah, so on the off chance, I started looking on their website and started to see if they're applying. I didn't see anything on there. So like you do, I printed a load of CVs off. I put my jumper on and my shirt and I walked into all the offices saying, have you got any jobs? And everyone in the offices sort of said, no, you need to speak to this guy. No, you need to speak to this guy. So, and the guy that I needed to speak to was David Alexander. So sort of I reached out via email and said, look, I'm looking for a job. Would you give me a job? Honestly, it was tough to get a job there actually. And I'd applied at a few other places, just locally, just hand delivering things. Anyways, I get a position, but the position that they gave me was property consultant. And that's what I was touched on about these different roles. And I sort of said, okay, well, what's the property consultant role? I had an interview with a guy called Chris. He said, what you'll do is, you'll take inbound calls and you'll book viewings and appointments. You'll go on those viewings and appointments. You'll come back and then you'll hand them over to the negotiator. The negotiator will negotiate them. And I'm like, okay. I can do much more. I could do the whole thing for you. But that's just not quite how we work. I'm like, okay, no worries. That's fine. But I just really want the job. So I took a job doing far less than what I was doing. Actually, even when I was early 20s, it was on less money as well, which I was shocked. But, I didn't really think about those things at the time. I had no overheads or nothing like that. We were living with George's mum and I just took the job. But 6 months in, I got a manager's job in another office because I think they just switched on to the fact that I just wasn't fulfilled.
So, like, going back to what you said at the first position, and then going into your first day in a large, because was Paul Carr the size of what it was still? Was it a large? Was it?
Yeah.
So it was a large.
It was. I think at the time it was probably a 12-branch network.
12, So what was it? What was it like on the first day? Like, did you turn up at 8:30 to start sweeping down the windows?
Yeah.
And they're thinking like, who the fuck is this guy?
Yeah, in a nutshell. and I think that I genuinely think from that day one to obviously where I am now, you always have a level of lingering doubt. And I probably always knew I didn't quite belong there because I was so embedded in the foundations that I'd had from Steve Gooch. And I think if you spoke to a load of people that had worked with me over the years at Paul Carr, they'd say all I spoke about was Steve Gooch. All I spoke about was Nikki. Because that's what I believed in. And I believed it so strongly that it was like that. And what started to happen, as I suppose whatever happens, they say you become the 5 friends you hang around with. I started to stop sweeping the front. I started to stop emptying the bins. I started to stop hoovering the office every night. And eventually, 6 years later, actually, I got fed up with the fact that I wasn't doing that anymore. And I wanted to go back to doing that anymore. And that's who I truly was. And there's some of the foundations that I've set up my business on. So yeah, those early days, it was a bit of a, I'll show you guys. I'll show you on this, doing this. No, come on. And I actually said, and it obviously came around. I said, my name will be above the door. I'll own this business one day, because I just felt that I would. And it isn't arrogance, and I hope it doesn't come across that way. I just felt that I had the capabilities once I'd gone in and started working in there to move through it very, very quickly.
But I think we, especially in the UK, as a society, we see confidence in your ability to manifest your dreams. It can be dampened because people go, oh, well, no, don't do that. Like, you seem a bit arrogant, you're a bit cocky, a bit confident. Like, but that's what we need more of in the UK, because that's the belief, that's the hunger, that's where creativity is created, innovation is created, when people step out of the machine and go, no, actually, let's see if we can rip up this. And
my mother-in-law used to say it to me. We've spoke many times before what a big influence she's been, but her husband used to run sort of casinos and things like that, and she always used to say, when people would come to feel and say, I'm going for another job, it's a bigger title, it wouldn't be oh no, why are you doing that? It'd be great. I've coached you, I've taught you well, great, move on up. Because what we have to realise is Paul Carr, he took the plunge. He set up the business on his own. He had that eagerness and that drive to go and do something more. So to hold that back from within people that work for him is a mistake.
Yeah.
You need to push those kind of things out. Those traits are fantastic. Now, you hope for your business that people stick with you because it's a great place to be and they're fab. But also, in the same breath, you hope that you create an environment where people grow so much they don't need you anymore. Yeah,
I mean, I think... I'm currently doing a coaching and mentoring in strategic coaching and mentoring in an organisation. So it's thousands of words, like a master's, and they're actually talking about how to lead over performers, and like what not to do with over performers compared to underperformers. And a lot of the over performers is saying, allow them to be influenced and be involved in some of the managerial decisions, get them to at least be in that room to have their input, because some of the input they might have is different to what you normally think.
Yeah.
And yes, they need to govern by rules, but don't overmanage them. No. Don't stifle that creativity, because that's what makes them who they are. And I think I've certainly been in businesses where you have these ideas and you hunger for it, and then it's almost like you get allowed a leash, and then when you go too much, they yank you back in like they're trying to correct a dog effectively, and you just go down this like roller coaster of like, where do I go and where do I stop, and like you're a bit confused. So 6 months into Paul Carr, you're outvaluing, you said you got moved to another branch.
Yeah, so quite quickly, I think, within big businesses like that, opportunities do come up a lot, and that's something I recognised. I think that I won't say it's a revolving door, but within big businesses, people come and go quite regularly. So opportunities for someone that's looking for them do arise. And the first opportunity that had come up, and don't get me wrong, I'd put the work in. I was still doing those types of things. I was in early. I was getting that list of all the right moves to do in the morning. I was making sure that I was hitting the phones first. And I struck up a really great relationship with my partner in the office, Ange, which meant we could both do really, really well. And then, a manager left. There was an opportunity to go over to an office which was more sort of just outside the city of Birmingham in Hampstead. So it was sort of a 15-minute drive to the city centre. So it was a way more urban market. I'd never quite actually worked in an urban market before. Loads of chimney pots, fast-moving market, and I just saw it as an opportunity. And this office at the time was bottom of the pile of 12, and I was dying for it, and no one wanted that gig, So there's me thinking, I've got this amazing job. I don't think anyone applied for it when it came through, So took that job, and I think within a couple of months we turned that office around. It was it finished second that year in office of the company, and I think that was me taking my moment to start to probably lay some foundations with the hierarchy that I want more, I can deliver more. I've got a real talent here and an ability here from the foundations that I'd learned elsewhere. and please see it, because though I loved that opportunity at Hampstead, there were other areas that I wanted to work in, closer to where I lived, in bigger offices, etc., just different things. And I was always in a hurry to do it. There was sort of a switch moment, as I said, that sort of went off. Before, when I arrived at Steve Gooch, there was no confidence that I'd ever really move through. But once I got to Paul Carr and I felt, I've got some real evidence here, and you start comparing yourself to other people, you go, I can go somewhere with this. So yeah, went in there, had a great time in the Hampstead office. That moved very, very quickly, but still wasn't the manager. I was just a valuer / assistant manager, and I was answering to somebody else all the time. And so that happened really quickly. And then there was another opportunity to go to another office where there'd been a managerial change. But again, it was underneath another manager. Again, it was really urban, really close to Birmingham. And I just thought, I fancy a change. I've done really well here. Let me go there, show you what I can do. And there I was doing everything bar the managing, which was fine because I'd never been a manager before. But I dare say, I feel like I have a little bit of a natural instinct to want to be in a leadership position, to want to direct people, to want to coach people. I was the guy on holiday running around the pool, getting everyone ready for water polo. That was me, and then trying to direct the team as to what we should do. So, and the best way to do it. So I moved to that office. I was doing everything. I was listing everything. And just by luck, that manager, again, took another job with another business. And I said, let me take it on. And they were super unsure at the time, I think. David, who was a massive supporter of mine, I think he could just see what my enthusiasm for it. But still, he was always taking a risk because he would have to answer to Paul to say, I've put this young guy in that job. And I know he's this, but can he lead people? Can he lead 4 or 5 different people? Can they see him seriously, or do they see him as the cocky, arrogant valuer?
Yeah.
And, he took a chance on me. And again, we delivered really great numbers in Erdington. And that continued. It continued because, I went from one office to another office to another office. And it was almost sort of the way I saw it, with a bit of a fixer role, Dan will go in, that's fine, we'll turn the office around, we'll get that one up and running again, because I'm just relentless. It's just the door knocking, the phone calls, the chasing. And that was where, that again, it stems from Steve Gooch. He'd walk in the office, 3 people in the office, why are you here? Someone go out, go and door knock. Go and door knock in the rain. If it's raining, they're inviting you in. Don't take an umbrella, get wet. You're going in, you're having a cup of tea, and you are coming out with that listing. So I'd just be relentless, just out and about. So the numbers were going up and up and up. And I think that was a really great sort of opportunity for me. And that was the part of me showing myself as what I could do. And along that time, I suppose I was building this relationship with David, who was just seeing that he was putting confidence in me and trusting me, and I was repaying it. And then he'd put his trust in me again, and I would repay it. And that's where it finally amounted to the point where Paul Carr was selling out the business, and David was buying out the business, and he brought a couple of people on to do a management buyout, and he asked if I would do it. And I think I was surprised at the time.
How did that feel when you said all those years before, my name's going to be somewhere above the door?
Yeah, there was a certain accomplishment to it.
And what did you first say to Jordan when you first heard that news?
To be fair, I'm not sure I can remember exactly what I first said to George, but I think I'm on this bit that I'm always talking about, as you can tell, I'm always talking about something, and I would have started to bring it up with Jordan, you're not going to believe this, I've had an opportunity to buy out the business, and then we would have spoke about it as to sort of the highs and lows and the positives and the negatives about it, because George's really pragmatic, I think that's the right word. George's really calm. I get ahead of myself a lot of the time, and George pulls me back in and makes me sort of see it how I need to see things.
Yeah.
So at that point, she'd have been looking at everything, and I'd have just been looking at,
oh my God,
I'm gonna own this massive estate agent, and I'm gonna be a director, and I've got all these ideas and everything like that. And expectation of reality is something that I have with everything. I have really high expectations, and then the reality of them never quite
slaps you in the face sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm definitely learning to be better at that. I'm definitely learning just to take a moment and not get too ahead of myself. And there's something I read recently, actually, and it resonated with me. And you've got to go slow to grow. And sometimes I always used to talk about it with offers and things like that. Slow your roll. Don't get too ahead of yourself. So in that moment, I was definitely getting ahead of myself. You know, I was thinking about how I was going to own the biggest estate agency in the West Midlands. I was thinking about, you know, the house I'd probably buy in the next few years. I was thinking about the shift in my role and how I was going to impact. Because the guys that I worked with, I was really big on training and development, and I would put together training and development plans, and I'd take them to David. This was just when I was in my management roles, to say, can I run a training exercise, please? You know, in the training room next week with all the staff, I've got this really great idea around, you know, rapport, trust, and then execution, how we can do that. And he'd be like, yeah, okay, run with it. So I was like thinking, great, okay, now I'll be able to, we're going to have, you know, monthly training sessions, and I'm going to be able to impact this and do all that and everything that. So I was getting so far ahead and planning so far ahead. And then, yeah, you know, you go through this buyout process, which takes some time. And I'd come in it at the end. You know, David had been trying to sort that buyout for years. You know, it's a big business with lots of numbers to deal with. And at that point, you know, I'd gone through the ranks there and moved very, very quickly there. Some people liked that I'd done that so quickly, and there were other people within the business that thought I'd been moved up too quickly. And you know, I was David's favourite. I think people will always have that respect of people that are moving up ranks. They go, well, it's just a favourite. That's why they get in there. It's not based on numbers or results or things. But you know, I know in my heart it was based on the work that I did, and I did build a very strong relationship with him because of that. But yeah, the moment that we actually completed, and this would probably be weird, I suppose this is more of a moment because I remember it. We completed on the business on a Friday. We went into Birmingham, we went to the solicitor's office, we signed all the paperwork. You know, the transaction was through, you know, multi-million-pound deal, and I'd put in every penny that me and George could muster. I sold a car at the time for an extra 3K. And I bought into this business, and I thought that was it. I'd made it. The business that I'd said, you know, 4 or 5 years prior that my name would be above the door on, I turned up on Saturday morning to go and do a shift, you know, in the office. And I pull up outside the front, and the sign says, you know, Paul Carr Estate Agents. And I walk in, I'm sitting there on my own, and I'm thinking, this doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel how I think it should feel. It doesn't feel what I thought it would feel. It's just off. I went home and I told George that it just didn't feel how I thought it would feel, you know. The day before, I put on my lovely tie and my lovely suit to go and sign the paperwork to buy that business. David was a majority shareholder, then there was myself and Chris, and then there was Emma, and you had a second sort of minority share in this business, and you're thinking, oh, it means so much to me. It's going to mean so much to me. I'm going to feel a certain way. And it's like that a gold medal thing, where you go to the Olympics, you win your gold, and you come back and you go, poof, and you're deflated, and there was nothing there.
And why do you reckon that is?
I think it's because I always knew that I shouldn't have actually been buying that business. I shouldn't have really been the director of that business, because taking over that business, I had literally put together like a dossier to David of how we're going to operate as a board of directors, what our decision making is going to be like, how our training program is going to be. I was actually trying to rewrite the business. Yeah. And that should have been the sign to say, this ain't the business for you. Yeah. Because you're trying to rewrite it.
Trying to buy a business and then
change it. and David used to put it the best way. That business is a juggernaut. Yeah. And it's going forward. Yeah. And you can't change that direction because he is responsible for over 100 people's mortgages. Yeah. And he is responsible for 100 people's earnings. And he can make small changes. And he can take it in the direction that he needs to, and it can impact it, you know, that 1% of change. The change will come, but it has to be slow. We've got to move there. And I want to do everything now.
But I think the hardest thing, and we're seeing it now, like in the last couple of weeks. I remember with Mark doing EAX 6 or 7, and he had a football pitch of players, businesses that are going to succeed and businesses that are going to fail. And he had a list of these people, and everyone was like, what are you talking about? That one there, they're in like W.H. Smith's. They're in every airport. They haven't got any problems. And he's talking about a digital shift that's going to happen. It's going to be so aggressive. We're going to go in the next 10 years. It's going to be so aggressive that if you don't transition quick and become a nimble organisation, you're going to be taken out by companies that you can and move in that time. And lo and behold, the same sort of slides and pretty much every year when he put up a new slide, the ones which were previously before he took out, the ones which actually have been closing. And you have to be very careful. And obviously, yes, you've got the size of a 19 branch agency and 100 members of staff, but equally at the same time, like, what you leading them off a cliff at some point where a business can be overtaken, or and it can be aggressive. If you think about most estate agency out there, and including the one I used to work for, market leaders, really well, company set up, got really good, pierced the market, opened other office. I mean, that business now has just been bought out by a massive private equity company, and they've got cash even greater. And the original, obviously the company I used to work for, got struggled because, we don't want to change things. We've done it like this since late 90s, early 2000s. We'll keep it this way.
And my belief in that is that you may be able to sustain.
Yeah.
But there's that little saying that my mum always says about how does an ant eat an elephant, and it's just one small bite at a time.
Yeah.
And what we're seeing now is a lot more ants.
Yeah.
Lots and lots more ants. And these big elephant companies are starting to get bit out. And their timeline of survival, which was 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, is now just diminishing. And I always felt that if I continue here and try and make these little changes, which will happen over time, that 1% of change, when David decides to sell out in 5-10 years and I buy out this business, what will I have left? What will the landscape be? Is it the right place for me to be and do it? Can I do it with these people? And you start asking yourself all these questions when you're as ambitious as I am. And the answer, obviously, at that point was no.
Because you have to, if you look at basic, simple core values, and the values of what you're probably going by and what you want to do, break things and move things quick, and go with a bit more speed, and then you're working, committing to yourself 7, 8, 9, 10 hours a day to that business that is the opposite. And there's naturally going to be a friction of, this is not synergy. It's like the energies are flowing differently. My energy is this, and it's like a negative and a positive charge. And I certainly saw that. I mean, see, we were having conversations outside of our own sort of group stuff with Project Peak Performance, and you could see that was like Dan today and Dan there. You could see you were like a shell of the individual, because you couldn't pierce yourself out and shine bright. And I think when obviously you announced that you were moving on and you decided to do it, it was almost like, for me, it was like a rise of the phoenix. Of like, no, actually, I'm excited about this. And obviously, the amount of times I've messaged you and said, just keep going, mate, because it's wicked to see. So most people climb that mountain, and most men, actually, they talk about it. There's a great book called Second Mountain, and it's written about how men are told in their 20s and 30s that you get married, have a house, have children, get a successful position in business, and you'll be set for life. And most men realise they climb that mountain and go, I've been lied to. This is not. I'm not in the right career that I should have had, or I'm not in the right relationship. I've been told I've just got to stay there. So you obviously arrived at that point. So what was that conversation when you were like with obviously your family in Jordan, and to say, actually, I'm going to rip up the playbook here, and I'm going to do it my way?
Yeah, I think that the word luck gets branded around, and I think most of the time luck is hard work, opportunity, somewhere in the middle. But a genuine piece of luck is the way in which Jordan is, because you talk about that journey that people go on, and they end up with wife, kids, husband, kids, and the dynamic shifts in terms of how you need to behave and what you need to do. Whereas George's always been super supportive. The day in which I actually made the decision, we hadn't decided that I was going in tomorrow to tell him I was leaving. It had been a build-up. And throughout that time, I just knew that the day in which I told George, I've left, I've done it, she would support me. How she'd support me, I'm not sure. But when I did decide to leave, and I did hand in my notice and then go work out what that process was of leaving, because it was a lot more complicated than I thought it would be. I told George that evening, I didn't tell her the morning I was going to do it, and she said, I'm pleased. Well done. I'm happy for you. And most people go, oh, what are we going to do? What are we going to do about the loss of that salary? What are we going to do about the loss of that income? What are we going to do about the fact that, you'd promised those shares would be worth X in 5 years' time, and, we were going to be sorted? There's nothing like that. It was, I'm glad for you. Well done. I'm pleased you've done it. It was the right thing to do. Now, would she have told me it was the right thing to do before and forced my hand and given me her opinion? No, because it had to be my decision. But whichever one I made, she'd have supported it. And I don't think that everyone has that opportunity. So that definitely is a bit of luck. But what I would say to anyone that is sat at a table where they don't feel like they belong, get up and leave the table. Because I was at the table that everyone wants, that people are still working towards within that business and many other businesses. And I would get my paycheck at the end of the month. People always say, don't they? Oh, I hate my job, but it pays me well, so I do it. Well, I hated my job and it couldn't have paid me any money in the world to want to do it anymore. So you leave, and it is frightening and it is scary. And you've heard me say this before. Keris, my mother-in-law, she gave me a book, Feel the Fear, Do It Anyway. Because if it feels right, it's right. And if it's wrong, it's wrong. And the best bit about anything in life is you can just go back, or you can just start again, or you can just find another job. So it won't be the end of the world. It's tough to get that, but if you're in a supportive environment, I think that the chance of you accomplishing those types of things and making those decisions are made so much easier. And I'm definitely in one of those environments and have been for a number of years. So I feel able to make those decisions without any judgment.
Powerful. So you've left,
but everyone did think I was mad.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. But I mean, I think when they say it, obviously, you think if everyone thinks that you're mad, then there must be something that's right about it. Yeah. I know it sounds, whatever, if someone's listening thinking that, it makes sense, but there is because if everyone agrees with what you're looking to do, then you're just in the same
boat as everybody else.
Boat as everyone else, yeah.
Yeah.
And you need to be rule breaking and innovating and creativity and just testing the limits.
We all admire all of those people.
Yeah.
We admire those people. We look at them all of the time and we go, oh, I wish I could do that. I wish I could have that.
And everyone has the ability, but like you said, lean into fear. So you've left, you've obviously had your period of grace that you had to give.
Yeah.
And then you move on to what you do now. So why did you set up what you've set up now?
What I'll do is, and I know you won't mind, let me just backtrack.
We're gonna give you about 15 more minutes to get through this.
Okay, well, what I'm going to give you quickly, I'm going to backtrack one little bit, okay? And then I definitely can get through it for you. Firstly, leaving that business and starting up Yumi and Property, there was a massive part in the middle when self-doubt kicks in, okay? Yeah. Where everybody and anyone that's in this position now and is thinking about it goes, what have I done? Why have I left that job role? It wasn't so bad. Yeah. I could have carried on. Right? A
bit like a shit relationship.
Yeah, 100%. Never go back because it's still
that person
shit.
Was horrible,
absolutely.
But the sex was good.
and you just go back to it. So I just think that remember that period if you're going to make that jump, because you will have regret. You will have second thoughts. You will have, and a good friend of ours, I think James Humphrey Stone has spoke about this, where I think he was 2 months into his business, he listed like 2 properties, and he's saying to Hayley, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What have I done? I can't do it. And I loved hearing that on the podcast. And it's those moments which people like us, we need them, because it just makes you realize. And that's why I say you'll have the doubt, you'll have the worry, you'll think I've made a mistake, you'll apologize to everyone that you love. And if you need to, you'll go and make yourself miserable again and do something else. So you just must remember that it will pass, you'll come through it, and then the success will come. Yumi and Property was set up, and it was set up on the core beliefs and foundation that customer experience is needed back in our industry. And when I say customer experience, I don't mean customer service. Like customer service is, yes, sir, yes, madam, let me take that message for you. I'll have someone call you back. Customer experience is, Hi Rob, how you doing? How's the kids? They okay? I know I was calling you Friday, but I'm jumping in on Wednesday because I got something for you. Let's meet up. Let's go see it. I'll pick you up and we'll go together. Customer experience.
Yeah.
It's gone. And I wanted to bring that back. I'm massive on relationships. It's ingrained in me. That might be, let's get deep with it. That might be from childhood, parents divorce early, step-parents, step-brothers. You've got to build relationships. I love building relationships. I like deep, meaningful relationships. And in normal estate agency, you just can't have them. It's too fast-paced. It's too quick. There's too much volume. And all that matters is the next listing. Not to me. And that's why it is called You, Me, and Property. The hardest thing about scaling this business is it won't be me. It'll be somebody else doing it with the client. So the idea is that I'm with people from start to finish. I'm the agent they chose when I walked through their door. I'm the agent that shows their prospective clients around that property. I know it inside out. I'm the person that bleeds with them when the conveyancing isn't going right and we need to solve something and fix something and save something. And I'm the person at the end of it that doesn't just get paid at the end of a transaction, that comes around 2 weeks later for a coffee and lunch because we've built a relationship. And I think when we talk about home owning, whether it be a flat, a bungalow, a house, whatever size and type and financial, it is the most personal thing we ever own. We remember the furniture in it. We remember the laughs we have. We remember where we had our kids. We remember that my parents had 2 kids in a 1-bedroom flat. Yet when we sell it, we're just, okay, yeah, who's the cheapest? Yeah, we pop it on for me. No. I want it to be an experience. And that is actually what I have managed to capture because I'm still talking to my clients now that we've transacted. They're friends. And the bigger we get, it's how do we retain that? Because one of my biggest fears about the industry and where it is moving, there's no doubt where it is moving with personal estate agents, broker models, hybrid models, is can we still have that level of quality when agents can be so heavily backed by amazing social media campaigns and marketing campaigns? They join me, look, I've got a drone, I've got a video, look at what I do. Wow, I'm going to go with that agent.
Because actually it's quite interesting from the outside perspective or working with agents across the UK and different models, different sizes and all sorts of stuff like that. I always say, like, some of the agents out there are only successful because of the videographer. Yeah. Take the videographer out of it, and actually you've still got an average estate agent.
And Rob, it's so important that we get that right.
And I'll give an example. I've got friends who are trying to sell their house. It's quite a complex situation with it. And they were coming to me and said, can you give us some advice? Because the agent's basically just saying not much they can do about it. And the buyer was struggling to get finance on their particular home because it's quite niche in what it is. And the agent was like, we'll put it back on the market. And I was like, but who are you going to find? Who are you going to find? And so I've rung around a few of the people I know, managed to work out, not even the agent, managed to find this specialist lender broker person, got them in touch with the buyer. The buyers managed to get the finance and now they're buying. And they're like, oh my God, Rob, we should be paying you, not the agent.
But you know what?
That's the crazy
because
stuff.
you care about them. Right? Because you actually care about them. You want to help your friend. Not only do you want to do that, you want to do a proper job, which not everybody does want to do. And that is the shift. Honestly, I know it doesn't seem a long time ago. When I started, we would still sit down on a Thursday when the paper had been delivered and circle the properties that we'd been to, that we'd lost, that were on with other agents that were sticking. And then we would still talk people through properties. We'd say, come and view this one, I'll drive around 2 or 3. The right move age, which has taken over, and then the COVID age, where we became so digital with the marketing and advertising of property, it lent itself to really poor agency and a lack of an ability to sell, which is what we still need to do.
Yeah, because I think I notice it's the same people who tend to moan about it being really busy and it's competitive and anyone can put a house on the market and there's so many agents out there, the same people that moan when the market goes quieter and they can't get the fees that they want because other agents are cutting. And it's like the only similarity between the two is that you're in the middle of it and you're moaning about a good market or a bad market. And you're not making your own market. So you're obviously still early days into owning that business. What was it like, getting the first listing getting it through to exchange, completing on it. Like, just run through that for anyone who is. And also, actually, a question before that: what made you go solo instead of going to an EXP or another brokerage model? Because I'm sure, obviously, James, up your neck of the woods, the Avenue, great agency, client of ours, like, they'd probably be a good fit because they like to break stuff and change the mold. So what made you go, I'm actually going to, take on more of the costs that you would have at agency and actually set up my own?
Number one, they are a great agency and they're great lads as well, and they're actually been really helpful. But the answer is because I had to do it by myself. And maybe if I hadn't gone through the experience at Paul Carr of doing the buyout and working with a board and doing that, maybe I wouldn't have. I would have looked at a different option. But I had to do it by myself. I had to have no one else.
But what's the difference between, not even the Avenue, what's the difference between, because some agents, I've set up my own new business. I'm now with EXP. So EXP effectively gives them some software and an access to Rightmove. And they still see themselves as some. So what? I don't want look. Don't quote me because I might be wrong. Okay, completely wrong. But this is probably the way I made my decisions and things like that. And of course, at the time where I was going on my own, I looked at different options of EXP, and in and around my area, some real big players in EXP, and they've been previously with my business. So they're very good estate agents. They know what they're doing. I respect them a lot, and they're with EXP. So you think, well, okay, naturally go down that route. But what I see me doing, because I believe in what I'm trying to achieve, and the day-to-day estate agency thing is one part, but I really want our industry to understand its importance to people, and how we perform and how we act is so important to me that I needed to build a company and a brand that represented that. And with EXP, I didn't believe I could do that because I didn't feel like it would wholly be mine. I feel that there'd be some creative control behind the scenes. And also a bit of confusion. 100%. How it comes out. Under EXP. And I've seen that with other people. And then this may be completely wrong, but it's just how I feel like I understood it. One day, when I am old and grey and I want to sell my business, I will sell you, me and property to a bigger business. The way I saw EXP is EXP will, I feel, would always own my pipeline because I generated it under the EXP umbrella and banner. And if I wanted to grow my business, which was Dan powered by EXP, and I came to sell it, I couldn't. Now, I might be completely wrong, but when I was setting up myself, I thought, I just think I'm going to have full ownership here. I don't think I'm going to have full control here. And I think that if I decided, actually, I've built a brand, I've built this company, it looks great, and people are now coming to me, I want to set up me on my own without EXP. How difficult would it be to exit? And having just gone through an exit, I don't want to do that again. Yeah, because obviously clients that I work with who have got that sort of self-employed model that they've created themselves, a lot of them are working towards getting to a point where you become, again, that owner, operator, strategic planning, where's the direction of this business going, not necessarily the traditional estate agency role. And a lot of them when I talk to them, one of the first questions I say is, are you doing this on your own, or do you have plans for like building this as a network? And if it's like a network, we're going to strategically plan this route differently, setting this up to you just doing it your own, purely because you have to depart you from the brand. You now work for your brand, but to the point where if you get large enough, you're going to want someone to step into where you are at, where you operate your patch, because you're going to need to steer the ship of where everyone else is going and be that strategic partner with everyone. So I can see why you're doing that, and that's good. It's good. You made sense in that, in the fact of like going back to what you said about, I want to deliver a proper experience. Like, I want to make sure that when I onboard people to work within the partnership, I find the right caliber of people who actually want to deliver experience, not just be a self-employed agent. No. And the self-employed agency thing, again, like I talked about before with team and things like that, I think in order to breed the best level of quality of estate agents, you need an environment. 100%. So self-employed agents that unfortunately work in their kitchens or in their offices or in different spaces, they miss that
that tangible stuff in an office environment where you just hear some gold, or someone can just tweak you through something. So certainly when we build out, there will be a hub where people will work from, and when they come in, it's a space of growth where they're becoming better agents every single day, because whilst you're away from other people, yet you're dealing with transactions just in your way and you're here, but you're not hearing other sides to it. You're not hearing other potential options or how you could work or manipulate that situation. So you need to be in an environment with other great agents, because it will all make you better.
But I went to one agent's one model, and they're like an absolute unit going there at the moment, and they had an empty chair in the room. And a part of their thing was that any partner could sit into that chair and ask the room of all the other owners and agency partners, saying, I've got this issue going through. And also they would get people at different stages. So someone who might have been 2 weeks, 2 months, 3 months into it, sits down on their problems, and you've got someone across the other side of the room who's been in it 2 years. And it's amazing to see the knowledge share and the mentoring process, or someone who's a year down the line who's just started to get it going through but want to work out what's the next level. Someone's like, I'm 3 years down the line, this is what you should be doing. So you're right, and I think that synergy can only come in a room full of people. We see it all the time. So I'm conscious that this is a long episode for everyone listening. So you are listening out there, this has been a great episode for me. I've enjoyed it, so hopefully you've done the same as well. So going forward, like what do you see as the future of estate agency for you then? Like, are you looking to get to a point where you're looking at national, or are you looking at more refined into like, I don't know, the Midlands per se, or like, have you got an idea of where you want to take the brand?
We talk about go slow to grow.
Yep.
I'd like to take the brand locally, where I am right now, in Sutton Coldfield, north of Birmingham, and then expand in that area there, the north of Birmingham. But there is no doubt, and if you believe it and you truly believe it and you can say it, it can come true, that I want to impact the national real estate landscape, because I believe it needs that duty of care, and it needs a minimum entry requirement to truly deliver what customer experience I talk about with as many people as possible. So the dream for you, me and property is to be in our marketplace in Sutton Coldfield and help people. End of. And the dream for me as someone that is involved in estate agency and property is to improve the landscape across nationally and be part of that. And there's no doubt in my mind that's what I'm working towards, and that's what we'll achieve. The You, Me and Property thing in Sutton Coldfield, that's going to happen quickly, because you can feel it. Yeah. Because the people that you meet, the people that you see, they're just going, where's this been? God, I get it. Please help me. And that response I've had from people, it just gets you moving. So once I can get that into a place where great agents are serving my community, I'll be looking at how I can improve the whole landscape. Yeah, because I think on that last bit there, people feel the experience, they don't necessarily feel a service. You know what I mean? You go through a McDonald's drive-through and you get your burger, and that's a service, isn't it? Yeah. But if someone says something a little bit different out that window or talks to you in a different way, you always remember those things, and that's the feeling that's lost in it. He was nice. Yeah. She was great. Well, to finish off now, I've got a friend who he goes to Nando's. Yeah. He's regular at Nando's, but there's a lady behind the counter that she's always there, always on a Saturday when he goes. She always remembers him. His wife can't eat onions. Yeah. Even just in Nando's, a national chain, but he goes down and he feels like he's in a much posher restaurant or much because the lady comes in and goes, the same order again, and he's like, and he'll go down there over and over again, and all the other restaurants around, he doesn't go to them because he knows, I go to Nando's and she's in, I always know she's in there. But what's amazing, what he doesn't realise is that the impact on her, that he keeps coming back because of the experience she gives him. Exactly, yeah. And it's a two-way street. It isn't just one way, which is customer service. I'm going to speak to you nicely. Customer experience is let's work together. Let's connect as humans. Yeah. And it's huge. Brilliant, Dan. Really enjoyed this episode. I really appreciate it coming on today. Thank you for having me. I loved it. Thanks for listening to this Estate Agency X podcast. Can you make sure that you're actually subscribed to this podcast channel if you liked the content?
It helps us massively to get better guests, and it just helps us generally. So you might think you're subscribed, but just have a double check, whatever your podcast platform of preference is, that you're actually subscribed, and then that way we can continue to grow the channel and get better and better guests for you.